Greetings, happy Tuesday, and welcome back to my garage. A couple of things to discuss today, first of which are plants. I got some pictures from some classmates who've got their plants planted. I've heard some others through email have got their plants going pretty well. Here are my plants, still in the milk crates. You can see I've got 3 of the corn that actually survived, and all of the peas are growing well, but in a big tangled mess. So I'm going to grab my journal. I'm going to do some measuring and some recording.
Let's start by just taking a look at both of the plants, and we can see now they are very different from each other. When they started out, they were little tiny seeds, about the same size, about the same shape, but now they look vastly different. Pea plant is a mess of tangled leaves, and this guy just looks like a piece of grass, which is appropriate because he is technically a grass. And being a grass, he falls under the category of a monocot, or a monocotyledon, which stands, cotyledon is a seed leaf, the first leaves that come out of the seed. Whereas the pea plant, he is a dicot, or dicotyledon, which means out of the seed itself, 2 leaves grew. Let's zoom in here. You can see also the difference in the leaves. The pea plant has a bunch of different veins cruising out in different directions. That's what's called reticulate venation. And that has to do with the veins and how they kind of spread out, like if you opened up your hand as wide as it can be. And compare that with the corn. The corn plant has what are called parallel venation. And the veins on these leaves, you can see they go up and down, and they're spread apart, but they go up and down, straight up and down the leaf there. I'm going to do the corn first, I think, to put in my journal, but you can see just by looking at the sides of them, the plant themselves, like it's behaving differently even, right? The corn is standing up all by itself, not really touching the other plants, because later on in life he'll be out in the field poking straight up, not messing around. He doesn't need any help. But the pea plant's a climbing plant. It's more of a vine, and so it needs some extra support. It's going to get heavier later, so it needs to grab onto something, and it's grabbing onto the other pea plants. You can see these are called tendrils. They're at the end of the leaves. I want to make sure I add that to the journal when I put them in, along with my measurements. But we'll start by getting our journals out, and I think I'm going to do corn first. So I have today's date on there. So now it's time to add the picture. They're going to be a lot bigger, so I can't make it actual size. So I'm going to zoom out here. Here's my corn. I need to measure it and pay attention to the shape of it too. So I'm going to push it down towards the base of the dirt. It looks like the tallest one is about 7.5 inches. So I think I'm going to mark it at 7.5 inches. I'll draw a picture of it best I can. Right? I want to make sure that I show long straight ones coming out with one additional leaf shooting off to the side, and I'll add that to the journal. And just like that, we are done. I need to add my 7.5 inches, the measurement there for my tallest blade of corn. You can see I didn't draw all of them. I just drew the one, and I drew him tall and straight with the one piece coming out best as I could. Okay, let's move on to the pea plants now. This one's a bit trickier because the pea plants are so intertwined, there's not one just standing up by itself. So trying to pull it apart carefully even, you can see those tendrils, they're wrapped around each other like a knot. They're literally knotted together. And that's the job of that part of the plant. I tried to pull down some smaller sections down below, and it's knotted itself together. That's how that plant kind of holds itself up and survives. It climbs up other plants, so it doesn't have to have such a thick stem. Plus, it's also going to get pretty heavy later on when those pea plants start to come out there. So I'm just going to do the best I can with this. So I get the tape measure. Looks like a tall one is pretty close to 7, maybe 6.5 or 7 with those tendrils on there. So I think I'm going to go for about 7 inches, and I want to make sure I get the leaves and the tendrils in there when I start to draw. And there's my plant. I'm going to put down, you can see that when the leaves came out, they come out in pairs, sort of, almost like a heart when they come out of the plant, one on either side of the stem where they go. So I want to make sure I added that plus the tendrils, and then 7 inches, and done.
Okay, with that part done, we're not quite finished talking about plants for today. I've got one last question for you to be pondering, maybe asking family members about, and the question is this. Everything around us is comprised of or made of matter. That's the scientific word for stuff. You know, this table, the chair, the camera, it's all made of matter. Stars, the sun, they're all made of matter. So when we started, we had a little tiny corn seed. Let's say this is my little tiny corn, right? We put it in some water, let it sit quietly in the dark. It started to sprout a little bit. We've put it in the ground, and now I've got a plant here, right? I've made plant out of thin air. So the question is, where is that matter coming from? Where does it go from little tiny seed to big piece of corn? Yeah, I've got props this week. How does that seed end up as a big piece of corn? We know if we plant it in the ground, eventually it would get tall, we'd pick it and we'd eat it. How does that happen? Where does that matter come from? That's the question to be thinking about over the next couple days, and we'll talk a little bit about it on Friday. Now, before we're done, I'm missing the fact that we had our daily books that we were taking, that we were putting in our journals. And so I've got a book I want to read to you today, not one of the award books that we would be doing a summary for, but a different one that I've known about for a couple years, and I thought it'd be perfect for today and this time. The book is called Breaking News. And I'm going to move the camera so you can see the pictures better, and then I'm going to read it.
The Breaking News, written and illustrated by Sarah Lynn Ruel. Ooh, keep your eye on these pictures from the front inside cover. We'll talk about them in a second. The Breaking News. I really like the black and white versus the color in this book too. I remember when I heard the bad news. Suddenly, Mom is glued to the television. Dad can't stop checking his phone. They whisper, and I pretend not to hear. It is more than a little scary. Mom forgets to tuck me in. Dad is too tired for bedtime stories. It seems like everyone else feels it too. At school, my teacher says to look for the helpers. Even when the news is bad, you can still find good people trying to make things better in big and small ways. I want to help in a big way. I decide to put on the funniest show ever to make everyone laugh again. But the grown-ups don't feel like laughing. I tell them about the force fields I'll invent to keep us all safe, but their smiles are tiny and sad. I try to be on my best behavior all the time, to be so good, but they hardly even notice. I think maybe there's nothing I can do to help in a big way. I feel small. So maybe I can try to do just one small thing. And maybe another. And another. And one more. small things don't solve everything. The bad news is still there after all. But then again, so are we. Again, I like the way she uses her color and her black and white when she decided to draw these pictures. And the back inside cover with the kids doing different stuff.
So that's breaking news. I like that book, and I think it's pretty appropriate considering what's going on in the world right now. There's one more piece to that, though. On the website for the author, and I put the link down below. I've always wanted to do that. Put the link down below. She's got a printout for a little unfinished flower pot. And so I printed this out. I'm going to draw the kind of flowers and plants that might come out of this thing. And I'm hoping some of you do the same thing, and then send me your pictures. I want to see your interpretation of this. Now, some people will use this and just draw a beautiful plant, and that's fantastic. But with Earth Day being tomorrow, Wednesday is Earth Day, we had a big plan at school for a large celebration for Earth Day. Not going to happen. So other people have taken this and then on the leaves drawn things that they're going to do to make things better, right? Like in the book, she does a couple of small things to help out, even though she wanted to help out big. So some people are going to take, and maybe each leaf is a picture of something small you're doing, or maybe you're just finishing up the pot. But if you go down and print that out and draw it, get a picture of it to me. I'm really curious about it. So until Friday, be checking your personal email, and I too.